Late one evening, my buddy Nick called me, his voice laced with nervousness. It was unusual. While we talked often, he never sounded this shaken. He asked if I could meet him immediately. Surprised or concerned, I grabbed my jacket, called out to my wife, Emily, that I'd be out for a few minutes, and hurried downstairs. Sure enough, Nick was there, chain smoking like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. He wasted no time getting to the point. He had just caught his wife cheating and had no idea what to do next. I had no experience with marital crises, so I did my best to offer words of support. I told him he shouldn't waste his energy on someone who betrayed him and suggested he find someone who valued him, someone more like Emily. Our talk seemed to help. He calmed down, and by the time we parted ways, he had taken a step back from trying to salvage a relationship that was clearly one-sided. As the work week neared its end, Veterans Day approached. My friends and I had a tradition of celebrating in our own way, and that morning, some of them called to invite me on a weekend sauna trip. A perfect excuse to unwind, catch up, and honor the holiday as we did every year. That evening, I mentioned my plans to Emily. She was supportive, wished me a great time, and didn't seem the least bit bothered. Later, Nick came by to pick me up, and we stopped at the store to stock up on drinks and snacks, knowing we had a long day ahead. The next morning, 5 of us packed into Nick's car and set off for the retreat, planning to stay the whole day and possibly overnight. We had all been friends since childhood, practically family, so the camaraderie was natural. Hours passed quickly, and by evening, we were all thoroughly buzzed. The rest of the guys planned to spend the night in the sauna's small rest area. They were all married too, but none seemed in a hurry to get home, which puzzled me. Unlike them, I always looked forward to returning to my wife's embrace. After a while, I got bored and decided to call Emily. She didn't pick up. That was unusual. I tried once more, still no answer. A bit of unease crept in. Was she upset that I was out drinking on the weekend? I didn't want to risk making things worse, so I slowed down on the booze. For the past 4 years, Emily and I had been trying to have a baby with no success. It had been a painful journey, but we were committed to conceiving naturally. With that in mind, I figured it was best not to return home completely wasted. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Emily. She explained that she had been cooking and hadn't heard my calls. Knowing her, that made sense. She always welcomed me home with a warm meal. I told her I'd be back around midnight, maybe a little later. She sounded relieved and asked for a more precise time, so I settled on 1 a.m. After hanging up, I returned to the sauna, where the guys were deep in conversation. The moment I closed the door to keep the heat in, I realized they were discussing their wives, specifically ways to test their loyalty. I rolled my eyes, dismissing the idea as ridiculous. I told them I never bothered with that nonsense because I completely trusted Emily. That only provoked a round of sarcastic laughter. Some called me naive, insisting that women needed constant monitoring and that men had to keep them in check. Shaking my head, I told them to keep their outdated views to themselves. They suggested I at least check up on Emily from time to time, but I had never snooped through her phone or followed her around. That wasn't how trust worked. The conversation sobered me up. I decided to call it a night and head home. The guys tried convincing me to stay, but I had made a promise to Emily, and I intended to keep it. Their goodbyes were lukewarm, but that didn't matter. I had more important things on my mind. I hopped into a taxi, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts on the ride home. I felt irritated that my friends had to go to such extremes to keep tabs on their wives, yet Nick's ordeal kept gnawing at me. It was all just so messy and heartbreaking. When I finally stepped to my front door, Emily's face lit up with pure joy. She practically leaped into my arms, and for a moment I thought, there's no way she could be unfaithful. Her reaction was far too sincere to be an act. We quickly found ourselves in the bedroom, reconnecting with undeniable passion. Afterward, she drifted off to sleep on my shoulder, but I remained wide awake. My friend's words echoed in my mind. Should I check her phone? The thought nagged at me until curiosity finally won. I carefully reached for her phone from the nightstand, making sure not to wake her. At first, everything seemed normal. Then, I stumbled upon a strange app, and my heart pounded like it might burst from my chest. My hands went clammy as I opened it, only to discover it was a dating app. Her profile, under a fake name, was flooded with messages, graphic, explicit ones. My stomach churned. My wife had been cheating on me, and not just once, with multiple men. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. One conversation confirmed she had been with someone else that very day. A wave of nausea hit me as adrenaline surged through my veins. I quietly slipped out of bed, stormed into the other room, and began packing her belongings, fueled by rage and heartbreak. I spent the rest of the night stuffing her things into bags, fuming at the betrayal. At dawn, I finally woke her. She stirred, stretching lazily before trying to snuggle against me. I pulled away coldly and ordered her to leave. She blinked in confusion, then feigned innocence, claiming she had no idea what I was talking about. Wordlessly, I held up her phone, the dating app glaring from the screen. Her expression shifted in an instant. She spun some ridiculous story about how it was her friend's account, insisting she had only lent her phone for harmless chats. I wasn't buying it. I stared at her, realizing just how blind I had been. I had spent years confidently telling Nick and my other friends that I had nothing to worry about, how wrong I had been. Dragging her to the hallway, I pointed at the suitcases I had packed. That's when she broke down, sobbing, pleading for another chance. But I couldn't hear her through my fury. I kept shouting, accusing her of shattering everything we had built. Eventually, she left. Devastation settled over me, but anger burned just as fiercely. My friends had been right about one thing. You never truly know what someone is capable of. I couldn't stand being in that apartment, so I spent hours wandering aimlessly, unsure where I was going. Then my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. The second I answered, she launched into a vicious tirade, cursing me out as if I had wronged her daughter. I hung up mid-rant. The following weeks were a blur. I threw myself into work and leaned on my friends, grateful they didn't ridicule me, but instead rallied around me. They even attempted to set me up with other women, but I had zero interest in dating. Just as I was starting to find some stability, my ex-wife called. She claimed she was pregnant, and that I was the father. I let out a disbelieving laugh, but she sounded dead serious, insisting the baby was mine. Once, hearing those words from her would have been a dream come true. Now, I didn't know what to think. We had no contact throughout her pregnancy. About 8 months later, I finally reached out, prepared to step up if the baby was indeed mine. But when I mentioned a DNA test, she scoffed and said she had already found a real father. She didn't need me. I thanked her for her honesty and mentally closed that chapter of my life. New Year's arrived, and my friends and I decided to celebrate at a local bar. It was a typical guy's night, drinks, music, and plenty of laughter. At some point, a group of performers dressed as festive dancers took the stage, their routine full of energy and charm. Something inside me shifted. After their number, I followed them backstage and invited them to join our table. They hesitated at first, but a bit of charm and maybe some playful flirting convinced them. My friends were more than happy about the unexpected company. The night turned into a whirlwind of drinks and revelry. By the time everything wound down, my memory was a bit hazy. The next morning, I woke up to an unexpected sight. 2 of the dancers lying beside me. I blinked in disbelief, then let out a slow smile. Maybe life wasn't as bad as I had thought. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to move on. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support keeps the channel going, and I truly appreciate it. Hope you have an amazing and blessed day.